The reservation card said Rourke, 2, 10 years. I had flattened its curled corner 3 times before Elena came down the farmhouse stairs in a black dress and the wool scarf I had given her 6 winters earlier. She smelled of cedar soap. Her hand settled between my shoulders as we entered the restaurant, light enough to withdraw before I could lean into it. We had spent the drive discussing pear grade, a pump bearing, and everything except why our anniversary needed rescuing. The host looked up and smiled at Elena. "Welcome back. And Mr. Holt, it's good to meet you properly. My name is Micah Rourke." His smile held while his eyes dropped to the reservation card. Elena went still beside me. "Of course. I'm sorry." He worried the paper tag tied around a folded scarf beneath his podium. "Mrs. Ruiz, we kept this after your private tasting." The scarf matched hers, except for a pale burn near one fringe. When he handed it over, wood smoke rose from the wool beneath the restaurant's citrus polish. Elena folded it once. "That was a distributor meeting." The host looked relieved to have an explanation. "Yes, with Calvin. I remember the pear flight." Her thumb pressed over the burned fringe. I knew that thumb's pressure from years of watching her test fruit corks and the grafting tape around split limbs. The first summer we worked together, she had praised the clean graft I made on a storm-broken tree. I had carried that praise longer than I should have carried any single sentence. The host turned to me. "Would you like the same table you had last time?" "We haven't been here before," I said. He looked at Elena. "It was business," she said. He checked the reservation screen as if it might protect all 3 of us. "I'm sorry. You and Calvin booked the couple's tasting." The host remembered Elena and Calvin had booked the couple's tasting, not the distributor table. The dining room behind him was warm with copper light. Our chef's table waited beside the open kitchen. 2 tasting glasses stood under a lamp, close enough that their rims nearly touched. I flattened the reservation card against the podium. "Say it again." The host's fingers tightened around the scarf tag. "They booked as a couple." Elena did not correct him. The host had called me Calvin and put my wife's scarf in my hand. I returned the scarf to Elena, set the reservation card down, and took the rear door into the cold. Kitchen fans shook warm grease and rosemary into the alley. Elena followed, still holding both scarves. I faced her beneath the service light. "One question," I said. "Are you sleeping with him?" Elena gave the ugliest fact first. "Yes." Kitchen exhaust warmed the cold air behind her confession. A cook pushed through the service door, saw us, and carried a tub of bottles toward the recycling bins without looking back. "I slept with him," Elena said. "More than once. I let people believe I was his partner." She admitted the affair without calling it an accident. I watched the street beyond the alley. 4 delivery trucks passed before I trusted my mouth. "Is it over?" "It ends now." "That wasn't my question." "No. It wasn't over when we walked into the restaurant." She held my gaze when she said it. That hurt differently from being lied to. It left nothing useful to strike at. "How long?" "Since spring. The private tasting was in June." "And the distributor meeting?" "There were real meetings. Calvin offered distribution for a city label I planned without you. The city label was planned, and Calvin was supposed to help distribute it. She corrected herself before I could. Not without you. Hidden from you. The label was mine before it was ever his opportunity." I counted the loading bays across the street. 3 doors, 2 yellow safety posts at each, 6 hinges on the nearest door. "Why?" "I wanted work with my name on it. I wanted a room where your mother couldn't correct me and you couldn't call access to fruit a favor." Her voice lowered. "None of that required me to deceive you. I did it because I wanted him to." My coat remained inside. Elena went back for it before I asked. She returned carrying it across both forearms, careful with it in a way that made me remember the chipped blue mug I had bought after her first batch foamed over. Tenderness had once followed every failure between us. That night it had nowhere clean to go. She held out the coat. "I don't have an explanation that makes this less deliberate." I took it without touching her fingers. "Are you leaving me?" "I don't know what you'll allow that question to mean." "It means I'm not bargaining in an alley for my own wife." Her face tightened, but she nodded. "We're done with dinner," I said. "No touching, no decisions about the house until we get home." We would remain married that night, but we would not sleep under one roof. She walked to her car. I followed her taillights toward the farm, keeping enough distance that she could turn elsewhere if she chose. By the county line, I had decided the roof that changed would be mine. I called June from the farmhouse drive and told her Elena had admitted there was another man. June arrived, 10 minutes later, wearing boots beneath her nightgown and carrying the expression she used for hail damage. "Her keys," she said. Elena stood by the kitchen table with both sets still in her hand. "I'm not taking anything that belongs to the orchard. You took the name into public and shamed it. I used my own name." June straightened my father's photograph on the wall. "The house sits on Rourke ground. Duty first." June wanted the house keys because the ground had to come before Elena. I opened the office drawer and took the ring for the worker cottage. "Elena stays here." June waited for obedience to replace what she had heard. "You'll leave your own house." "For now." Elena set her keys on the table, then pushed them toward me. "If this is a boundary, make it one. If it's punishment, say that plain." I pushed the keys back. "Keep them. We both keep access to our clothes and personal things. Neither of us enters the other's sleeping space without permission." I wrote those terms on the back of an unused load sheet and gave her the duplicate house key that had hung in the office. No locks changed. Nothing left the house except my duffel, work boots, and the cottage linens I carried across the yard. The signed bottling order would run Monday. Only the unsigned joint branding stopped. Elena studied the unsigned label proofs stacked beside 2 rows of empty crates. "You still control whether I can put the orchard name on anything after Monday." "I control the orchard name." "That's the sentence I mean." The labels on our empty crates no longer carried both our names. I took the cottage keys and left Elena every key she already had. June followed me outside. "Your father paid for every foot of this ground?" "I know." "You say that as if knowing is enough." The cottage had been empty since the summer crew left. Its mattress smelled of cedar, dust, and pruning oil. I inventoried 2 sheets, 1 blanket, 4 towels, and a lamp with a cracked shade, because counting was easier than picturing Elena alone in our bed. From the doorway, June said, "You let her keep the house. Next, she takes the ground." "No one is taking ground tonight." She left without touching me. Across the yard, the farmhouse kitchen light remained on. Elena sent a written handoff schedule before dawn. Orchard keys, management records, signed orders, Monday's bottling chain. I confirmed the time and lay awake until the operational surrender I had demanded became morning. Elena had Calvin on the office speaker when I arrived Sunday morning. Ivy stood near the filing cabinet holding a shift sheet between both hands. I had not requested a performance, but my orchard name and the signed order were part of the call, and Elena had asked me to hear her withdraw them. Calvin's voice came smooth through the speaker. "No one needs to make a permanent business decision inside a personal crisis. The placement is ready. The production advance gives you room, and the launch can still be clean." "Clean for whom?" Elena asked. "For the label, for your reach, and your access." A pause followed. "That's an unnecessarily harsh framing. It's the accurate one. The affair is over. You have no authority to show the label, discuss distribution, offer financing, or present me as your partner. You don't have to reduce your future to prove something to Micah. I'm not using my husband as the reason." Elena ended the call and sent the same withdrawal in writing. Calvin's full launch offer remained available if Elena changed her mind. She placed the orchard keys, management log, and equipment codes on my desk. The gesture brought back her first married spring, when June corrected her pruning in front of the crew and I had kept my mouth shut. Elena had learned exactly how little authority I defended when it competed with my family's. "The existing purchase orders stay intact," she said. "I'll finish the signed batch. After that, I'm out of farm management." Elena revoked Calvin's access, returned the orchard keys, and kept every signed order in force. I counted each returned key before setting them down. "I can't know whether you call him again." "No. You can decide what access I get to you. You don't get access to my accounts or phone because I lied." The distinction landed where anger had been doing useful work. Ivy held a shift sheet between us, waiting to learn whether she still had paid work. "Who supervises Monday?" she asked. "Elena controls the bottling station and her materials," I said. "I control fruit intake and orchard equipment. You take production direction from Elena until the signed order is complete." Ivy wrote both names on separate lines. Elena's chipped blue mug cooled beside the unsigned proofs. When she reached for it, her sleeve drew back from the wrist I had watched turn 1,000 tasting glasses. My body recognized her before trust did. She noticed. Don't make that proof of anything. I won't. The returned keys ended her management authority. The signed batch still put us together on the bottling floor at dawn. Pear ferment hissed through the filler, while Ivy checked the first run against the signed purchase order. Elena worked the controls. I handled fruit records and staged the finished cases on my side of the floor. We had marked the concrete with blue tape between our stations. It looked excessive until both of us reached for the same clipboard and stopped with our hands an inch apart. I can move, Elena said. No, that's your station. I gave the clipboard to Ivy. From then on, every production handoff passed through her. Elena adjusted the fill line with the small turn of her wrist I remembered from blind tastings. Years earlier, she had covered my eyes and made me name every pear in a blend. I had missed the neighbor fruit and sulked until she kissed the answer against my mouth. There was neighbor fruit in none of those bottles, but I no longer trusted myself to know every ingredient. You're overfilling by 2 ounces a case, I said. She checked the gauge. 1.6. Still over. She smiled before she could prevent it. You always round herd upward. The smile vanished between us. I kept both palms on my station. Fix the line. She did. Her competence had once felt like something our marriage owned together. Watching it from across the tape made the room smaller and my desire sharper. She came close once to inspect a seal, near enough that ferment, soap, and the heat of her skin reached me. Do you need space? She asked. I need the order finished. She stepped back, without making me pay for the answer. Ivy found our old tasting glass beside the hydrometer. Which station gets this? Neither, Elena and I said together. Ivy wrapped it in paper and put it in the storage cabinet. By noon, the delivery invoice matched the purchase order. The completed bottles carried separate labels and separate invoice shares. The buyer received the contracted cases. I retained my remaining fruit, and Elena retained her stock and brand materials. We finished the signed order without touching. We could still work together, which made the separate future hurt more. Desire had survived the truth, but it no longer granted either of us access. After the truck left, Ivy set an unsigned fruit proposal beside my invoice. Elena's terms covered grade, quantity, delivery, and market price. Nothing in it asked for marriage. The completed order had closed our old obligation. Her proposal forced me to decide whether there would be a next one. Elena's proposal remained open on the packing office desk. Rain had darkened one corner of the folded market awning beside it. These are market terms, she said. Inspection at delivery, payment by grade, no joint label, and no implied renewal. Talia read the figures once. Her margin is thinner than yours. That isn't the only cost. No, Talia said. It's the one written here. I had already requested terms from another processor. Talia put that agreement beside Elena's proposal and tapped the deposit clause. The replacement processor required scarce cash up front. Capacity deposit now, Talia said. Second draw before the first load. Payroll still lands Friday. Elena glanced at the agreement but did not reach for it. If you don't want to sell to me, say no. Don't make the farm bleed just to make no sound expensive. I'm separating the businesses. You separated them Monday. This is something else. Ivy stood in the doorway with the last batch sheet. If there's no next contract, should I look for another shift? Elena answered first. Yes. You should always know your options. I asked Talia for a fresh pen. Mine caught in the check and tore the paper where I pressed too hard. The processor gives me control of my crop, I said. Talia's voice stayed dry. The processor holds your deposit. You hold the crop. Those are the actual facts. Elena folded her proposal. Is it no? I could have accepted the terms without accepting her apology, her body, or the old arrangement. That was what made the choice difficult to disguise. No. I declined Elena's unsigned proposal in writing and signed the processor agreement. The cleared deposit came from the orchard operating account. The processor confirmed my reserved capacity. Ownership of the unharvested fruit stayed with me. Elena watched Talia record the payment. I won't ask again. I didn't ask you to. You wanted me to need to. She left with Ivy, taking the unsigned proposal, but none of my records. Without my pears, Elena would have to find fruit somewhere else. For several minutes, refusing her felt like standing upright. Then Talia turned the ledger toward me. The deposit had opened a hole directly above Friday payroll, and she left the book open until I looked at it. I went to the County Growers Exchange Friday morning to confirm grade forms for my processor. Elena was already at the long counter with Ivy and 2 neighboring growers. No one asked my permission. The purchase orders were read aloud because one grower wanted the delivery window changed and the other wanted rejection terms clarified. The volumes were small. The prices were high. Elena reduced the number of planned batches rather than ask either grower to carry her risk. "Inspection at delivery," she said. "Title passes only on accepted fruit. I'll pay the balance then." The growers agreed. Elena signed both purchase orders and paid the deposits from her business account. I did not need her private books to understand the result. The deposit receipts sat with the signed orders, and Ivy held a revised production sheet with 3 batches crossed out. "That won't replace my volume," I said. Elena capped her pen. "It doesn't have to. You'll lose the larger launch. I'll have a smaller one." Ivy rubbed her ink-stained thumb against her jeans. She looked pleased until she checked the shift column on the reduced batch plan. "Are those paid hours still real?" she asked. "Yes," Elena said. "Fewer shifts. Same rate." The reduced batch plan used neighboring fruit and kept Ivy on paid shifts. I recalculated the likely margins against the processor deposit already missing from my account. Elena could stay operational without my pairs. She could keep Ivy learning. My refusal had not stopped her. It had only made her future smaller and more expensive. "Did Calvin arrange these growers?" I asked. "No." "Did he fund the deposits?" "No." Her voice stayed level. "You can be angry without inventing a man behind every decision I make." Neighbor Fruit had once been the only pair I failed to identify in her tasting glass. I had treated that failure like a trick. Watching her close the folder, I understood how much pride I had put into believing I knew the source of everything she made. I asked Ivy when her first paid shift began. "Tuesday," she said, then looked at Elena before allowing herself to smile. Elena carried the orders out without asking me to bless them. By the time my processor invoice came due, her independent supply would be committed. Talia called before I reached the truck. "Come to the packing house tonight," she said. "You need the actual number." Talia had lender statements, lien schedules, repair invoices, and the processor agreement arranged across the packing house desk. Pear rot sweetened the air from a culled bin beyond the wall. "I know cash is tight," I said. "You know the checking balance. That isn't the same thing." As the authorized bookkeeper, she kept secured copies of the Orchard records. The lender held the originals. She turned the payment schedule so I could read it without moving anything from her files. 3 lines, she said. "Payroll Friday, processor draw before delivery, secured payment after harvest." Normal yield covers them. Normal yield assumes the deferred pump repair holds, the crew fills every window, and Felix accepts the contracted load. That's why June's ground is collateral. There's room. Talia straightened a crooked invoice. "No, there's exposure. The lender statements, lien schedule, repair invoices, and processor deposit reconciled without any margin." She aligned the due dates with the acreage listed as security. The oldest ground sat beneath the final column, not as family history but as property the lender could reach if harvest receipts failed and the cure period passed. One failed harvest would force sale of the oldest acreage. I totaled the projected bins twice. The answer stayed the same because numbers did not care how long my father had walked those rows. "When is the actual deadline?" "Payroll is first. After that, the processor draw. If the crop fails, there isn't enough unpledged value to carry the oldest acreage through the secured payment." I put my palm over the lien pages. They held the heat from the adding machine. "Why didn't you say sale before?" I said exposure. "You heard inconvenience." She did not soften it. That was the favor. I had spent the week using fruit as proof that Elena still depended on me. The fruit was already pledged to dates, wages, repairs, and a processor I had hired because refusing her felt necessary. "Can the weak acreage be sold early?" I asked. "Yes, if you accept that preserving every acre is no longer the goal." June would not accept it. She also controlled the only personal funds close enough to reach Monday payroll. Talia gathered nothing while I sat there. The authenticated records remained in her custody, but their meaning had moved into mine. Only June could provide money fast enough. By morning, I was driving to ask what obedience would cost. The East crop share block lay across the boundary road from my oldest pairs. Its owner had granted seasonal crop rights in writing while keeping title to the land. The trees were neglected but alive. Darius met Elena and Ivy in the pump shed with the membership sheets spread beneath a coil of survey twine. I came because Darius still owed my harvest the hours already on his schedule, and I wanted that stated before anyone signed. He read every share aloud. Member labor, crop interest, compensation treatment, equipment duties, and termination rights were written in plain lines. Elena buys fruit, Darius said. She doesn't run the block. I can help with fermentation requirements, Elena said. You can tell us the grade you'll purchase. You don't assign our hands. She looked at the smaller fruit estimate. Agreed. You'll get less volume. Then I make less cider. Elena accepted less fruit, transparent worker shares, and no management control. The participating workers signed voluntarily. The landholder kept the acreage. The cooperative members gained defined interests in that season's crop. Elena's disclosed purchase terms supported the first work, but they gave her no ownership of the ground or the crew. Ivy carried survey twine outside and miscounted the marked rows. She flushed, returned to the road, and started again without pretending the mistake belonged to someone else. The boundary road ran straight between my inherited trees and their independent block. Elena and I used to walk it after supper and joked that it was the only straight line on the farm. Now she stood on the far shoulder with a folder under her arm, building a supply that did not pass through me. I asked Darius, my scheduled harvest hours still come first? The hours I agreed to, yes. And the machine rotations? Fair rotations at your farm. Our block gets our off hours. I looked at the marked trees. No Rourke equipment crosses over. No one asked for it, he said. The answer should have settled the issue. Instead, I counted how many of my workers had put their initials on the membership sheet. June's car stopped beside mine. She stepped out, looked from my heritage rows to the survey twine across the road, and held up a document envelope. You asked for emergency money, she said. Now you give me an answer about the ground. Darius brought the weekend hour sheets to June's dining room because Talia needed them for Monday payroll. He stood at the door while June checked his totals as if paid hands were another risk to the family name. The crew needs equal machine rotations, he said. Slow assignments now will cost more than the hours you think you're saving. I'll set the assignments, I said. That's your authority. He left the sheets with Talia and went. She waited until the door closed before opening June's document envelope. The promissory note limited every draw to harvest operations. The security agreement reached the orchard interests I controlled. An additional condition required preservation of every ancestral acre. No early sale, Talia said. No shifting the funds wherever payroll pressure appears. This protects Monday and narrows every week after it. June set my father's fountain pen beside the signature line. The money came from my account. Clean funds. The ground stays under our name. You become my creditor. I become the reason you hold what was paid for. I remembered Elena's first married spring. June had taken the pruning shears from her in front of the crew and recut a branch that did not need recutting. I had said nothing because correcting my mother felt like ingratitude. Now June waited for the same kind of silence. Talia tapped the permitted use clause. The first funded draw covers payroll. The undisbursed balance remains June's. If you sign, her preservation condition becomes operational. Can the harvest proceed without it? Not through Monday. June slid the pen closer. O'Rourke doesn't sell ground because one season gets difficult. The acreage was already financially exposed. Her money gave me movement, but only in the direction she approved. I read the preservation clause aloud. Then I signed. I signed June's promissory note and security agreement, pledging the orchard interests I controlled. Talia witnessed the signatures, recorded the funded draw, and entered Monday payroll against it. June retained the undisbursed balance and a documented security interest. Debt panic had brought me to June's table and put her conditions inside my harvest. June took back my father's pen. Now hold your crew. By the time I returned to the cottage, I had begun sorting workers by whose initials I had seen across the boundary road. With cash secured and every acre promised, their lawful independence looked to me like disloyalty I could no longer afford. Before dawn Monday, I erased the equipment board and rewrote it in block numbers. The workers who had signed onto the crop share block went to the storm-damaged rows, where every full bin required more ladder moves and hand sorting. I took them off the preferred machine rotations and assigned older equipment that was functional, inspected, and slower. Darius read the board once. Change it back, Micah. Those rows need picking. Then rotate the whole crew through them. I decide rotations. He looked at the initials beside each slow assignment. This isn't about fruit. They're on my payroll. Their off hours are theirs. The block is lawful, and they kept every hour promised here. I could hear June telling me to hold the crew. I could see Elena across the boundary road accepting fruit she did not own. Those facts joined in me and came out as an order. They chose where their loyalty sits. I'm choosing where their hands go. Darius stopped using my first name. Rourke, you do this and the load goes short. Post the assignments. That's your one warning. I heard it. He stepped away from the board. Darius warned once, and I used the silence afterward as if it were consent. I posted the punitive assignments and took their preferred machine rotations away. The schedules, machine logs, and damaged row conditions made the retaliation plain. Nothing about employer authority gave me ownership of what they did outside their paid shifts. They could refuse unsafe work, document unfair treatment, or leave. I knew that, and still handed out the row cards. Ivy approached the board with a piece of chalk. Which machine is mine? You're with the slow row sorting station. I'm scheduled for bottling with Elena tomorrow. Today you work here. She wrote her name beside the older sorter, stared at it, then erased it. I need to know whether this is training or punishment. Today it's your assignment. Darius took the chalk from her and set it down. We're done talking. I had made fair work conditional on choosing my side. The crew walked out toward the slow rows, but no one moved with the practiced speed the Felix load required. Diesel coughed cold from the older machine. Beyond the shed, splintered limbs caught the first light. Felix's truck was due after lunch. By 9, the bins were short. By 11, several remained empty. I kept counting what no order could repair. Darius placed his keys beside the half-filled load ticket at noon. I'm resigning, he said. The others will speak for themselves. The key pickers came forward one by one. They left their timesheets with Talia and kept their gloves, water jugs, and labor. No one touched the equipment or fruit. I moved to the assignment board. I'll restore the rotations. Darius looked at the loading pad instead of me. You think fair treatment is something you can switch back on after we obey? I'm offering the old schedule. You're offering respect as payment. Darius resigned, and the key pickers followed him before Felix's truck was loaded. Talia began recording final hours and departure dates. The orchard still owed every earned wage. Ivy removed her gloves. Who pays today's hours? I do, I said. All of them. She nodded, but she did not put the gloves back on. Felix arrived with the purchase order clipped to his load board. He checked the quantity against the pick count, then examined the warm fruit waiting in the partial bins. You're short. I can finish tomorrow. The delivery window closes today. Replacement volume has to move tonight. I've supplied you for 9 seasons. And this load has one contract. His voice held no interest in Elena, Darius, June, or the reason my crew had walked away. Grade, quantity, and delivery were the terms I had accepted. Take the partial load, I said. Adjust the price. No, I can't combine an unplanned short load with the replacement source. Felix drew a line across the load ticket and wrote the cancellation beneath it. I'll source elsewhere. Next season, show me reliable labor and a full window. Felix canceled the short shipment under the quantity and delivery terms I had accepted. No title passed. The bruising pears and half-filled bins remained mine. No buyer payment became due, while processor costs, final wages, and June's funded draw remained on the orchard books. Talia gave Felix a copy of the cancellation notice and kept the contract record. When his empty truck pulled away, diesel heat rolled over fruit that had nowhere profitable to go. I counted missing pickers, missing bins, and the expected income until the figures stopped protecting me from the order in which I had caused them. I lost the crew, the contracted shipment, and the income in one harvest afternoon. Darius and the departing workers walked toward the crop share block. He carried no Rourke key. He owed me no more warning. I left the short fruit on the loading pad, crossed the boundary road, and went after the crew I had driven away. I crossed the boundary road again at dawn. Diesel hung over the wet grass. Darius had the cooperative tractor moving slowly between young trees, while 6 former Rourke workers cleared pruned limbs ahead of it. Bruised pears from my short load were still softening 200 yards behind me. Elena stood beside a stack of labeled crates with a crop share clipboard. She looked at me, but did not step between Darius and the tractor. Bring the crew back, I said. Darius shut down the engine. There isn't a crew for you to bring back. I'll restore every rotation. Preferred machines, fair rows, same hours. He climbed down and wiped his hands on his trousers. Those were hours before you took them. You need wages. I need pickers. We have work. This block cannot cover what I pay. The crew voted last night, he said. We're finishing this block together. I counted the workers behind him. 4 key pickers, 2 machine operators, and Darius. Enough hands to finish my Felix load if I had not taught them what my authority cost. Elena offered you something, I said. She offered a purchase commitment for fruit, Darius said. She does not hire us, manage us, or tell us where to work. Elena kept her voice low. They chose this after you punished them. I asked him, and he answered you. Darius picked up the clipboard I had brought. Morning Dew had spotted the restored schedule. He wiped the wet cover with his sleeve before handing it back. You want this to be marriage gossip, he said. It isn't. You did the crew wrong. I corrected the assignments. You corrected them after we refused to be owned by them. The cooperative tractor ticked as it cooled. Across the road, my unpicked fruit was moving past grade. While I stood among trees, I could not order anyone to leave. What would bring you back? I asked. Nothing this harvest. Darius committed every worker who wanted into the cooperative block through harvest. He restarted the tractor. Elena moved clear without touching the controls or the crew sheet. I had come carrying shifts, machines, and payroll authority. None of them reached across the line. By evening, the county growers would be asking why Felix's truck had left empty. I folded the restored schedule beneath my arm and went to give them an answer I already knew was false. Cold fluorescent light flattened every face in the county growers' shed. Pear dust lay on the folding chairs, and somebody had burned the coffee down to bitterness. Felix sat near the loading doors. He folded my canceled load ticket into exact quarters while I explained the missing quantity. What changed between your confirmed pick count and delivery? He asked. My crew was recruited out from under me. Elena stood against the side wall beside Darius. June had once corrected Elena's pruning in front of workers while I studied my boots. I remembered that silence and still chose a sharper version of it. Elena stole my crew, I said. She used what she learned on my ground to build against me. The room shifted toward her. Elena stepped forward. Name one stolen asset. You knew the workers. You knew my schedule and harvest weaknesses. I worked there for years. That is not theft. Name a record I took, a worker I coerced, or fruit I removed. I flattened Felix's canceled load ticket on the table, as if paper could make the allegation square. Darius spoke from the wall. Every worker chose freely. We completed our paid hours until Rourke punished people for outside work. You used my slow rouse to force the load short, I said. You assigned them. Elena did not raise her voice. Your pain does not make my business conduct criminal. Felix looked at me. Did she take fruit, records, equipment, or assigned labor commitment? I could identify none. I had damaged fruit, a failed contract, and workers who no longer trusted me. Owner status gave my words weight, but it did not turn grievance into evidence. She exploited knowledge she gained through my orchard, I said. That is a different claim, Felix replied. Do you have support for it? No document with me. Darius shook his head. There is no document anywhere. The accusation had already crossed the room. Growers who would never ask about my marriage now had a business charge to repeat. Elena stood in its path because I had put her there. Before I talk next season, I want evidence or a correction, Felix said. He put the folded ticket into his pocket. Darius left with Elena, neither of them asking me to follow. I remained under the fluorescent lights with no stolen asset to name. When the chairs began scraping back, Naomi Pike approached and asked how much replacement fruit I needed. Naomi's north orchard sat above the packing road where the wind reached every row. We walked it Wednesday afternoon, testing fruit and checking the graft unions on trees she had rebuilt after a split season. She touched one clean repair with her thumb. This acreage can cover part of your processor capacity. How much? Enough to make the deposit worth keeping. Not enough to replace your Felix income. Grafting tape snapped softly in the warm leaves. Elena had once watched me bind a split limb and told me my hands knew the difference between pressure and damage. At the time, I believed she meant more than the tree. Naomi handed me a term sheet. I can sell you the North Block fruit, but not if Elena enters the terms. She isn't part of my processing deal. I heard what you said last night. That concerned my crew. It concerned your wife. The room knew it. I read the proposed grade, volume, price, and acceptance deadline. My processor capacity had no value without dependable fruit. Naomi knew the shortage, but her price was fair. No references to Elena with buyers, she said. No presenting my fruit as proof you beat her. Business stays on this page. And outside the page? Naomi looked toward the weather building over the ridge. There is attraction here. I think you know that. My attention went to a fallen pear between us. We both reached for it. She got there first and put it in her jacket pocket. I know, I said. I will not be the woman you hold up so your wife sees you are wanted. I'm separated. That tells me where you sleep. It does not tell me what you are doing with me. She met my eyes then. There was no rescue in her expression and no denial of appetite. I want the fruit deal, I said. And I want to see what this is, apart from it. Maybe, she said. Only across a clean line. The term sheet required my signature after the full acreage inspection. No purchase order existed, and I had paid no deposit to her. Either of us could still walk. I accepted the condition and followed her deeper into the rows. The possibility of fruit steadied my calculations. The possibility of her disturbed them again. I was due back Thursday for the upper acreage. Any next step depended on wanting Naomi without making Elena its audience. We finished the upper acreage at sunset. Naomi's fruit met the processor grade, and the estimated volume held after we deducted hail damage and soft drop. At my truck, she placed the revised term sheet on the hood. You can sign tomorrow at the packing meeting, she said. I could sign now. No. Tonight is not business. The hood cooled beneath my palm. Wind moved through the pear leaves, lifting the edge of the paper. I set the unsigned term sheet inside the cab before I answered her. Naomi watched me do it. Do you want to kiss me apart from the crop? My cap caught on a low limb when I straightened. She laughed once, and the sound relieved something in me before her hand ever reached my chest. Yes, I said. I do. Once. It does not promise tomorrow. I understand. She put her fingers against my jaw and waited. I closed the distance. The kiss was sober, deliberate, and warmer than the evening. She tasted faintly of the bitter coffee she carried through inspections. My hand settled at her waist, and for several breaths I was only a man being wanted, not a husband counting what another man had been given. When Naomi drew back, I released her. That is the stop, she said. All right. She remained close enough that I could feel her breath change. Desire did not vanish because she had named its boundary. It became more exact. No coming inside, she said. No promises made with your truck parked beside my fruit. I won't ask. And tomorrow we negotiate as growers. I nodded. She ran her thumb once over the seam of my work shirt, then stepped away on her own terms. I did not follow. The kiss gave me no ownership, no crop reservation, and no claim on her future. It did give me the dangerous relief of knowing I could still be desired. Naomi pointed toward my cab. Terms expire after tomorrow's packing meeting. I'll be there. I drove down the ridge with the unsigned pages beside me. The kiss stayed on my mouth longer than the discipline that had made it clean. By morning, I had begun treating it as evidence that Elena had not been the only one with choices. The grading belt hummed beneath Naomi's packing shed Friday morning. She set 2 coffees beside the unsigned term sheet and waited while I reviewed the final allocation. The terms were what we had discussed. I had only to sign and arrange the deposit. You told the processor you had replacement fruit? She asked. I told him I had a credible offer. That is accurate. I also told him my situation had changed. Her hand stopped near her cup. Which situation? I slid the term sheet toward myself. Elena made her choices. I'm making mine. That sounds like you brought her into this. I didn't give details. What did you say? I could have stopped there. Instead, I wanted the satisfaction of making the future visible. I said Elena was not the only person with options. She'll hear soon enough that I found better fruit and someone who understands clean terms. Naomi looked at me without blinking. The memory of her mouth turned hot under my skin, but she did not let the heat alter her question. Was the kiss for me? She asked. Or for the day Elena learned about it? It was for us. That was not my question. I'm choosing a future. No. You're arranging witnesses. She took the term sheet from beneath my hand. No signature marked it. I had submitted no purchase order and paid no deposit. "The fruit offer is withdrawn," she said. "So is anything personal, not like this. You said the acreage worked." "It does. You did not. I can keep Elena out of the contract. You already used me outside it." The grading belt carried pairs between us, each piece turning beneath the cold inspection lights. Naomi capped my untouched coffee before she moved it to my side of the table. "I am attracted to you," she said. "That makes the no necessary, not negotiable." The sentence left no opening for charm or wounded argument. I had taken one clean kiss and packaged it as proof that my wife was replaceable. Naomi refused to let either her desire or her crops serve that purpose. "I understand," I said. "I hope you do later." She collected both copies of the proposal. Naomi retained her fruit, and I left without allocation, signature, deposit, or promise. Outside, the taste of coffee and the remembered kiss had gone bitter together. My processor capacity was still reserved, but I had no replacement volume to justify it. Calvin remained the explanation I preferred, the smooth man who had designed Elena's exit and taken advantage of her hunger. With Naomi's door closed, that story became the last future I could still use against my wife. Elena met Talia and me in her city production room Friday afternoon. Sharp ferment rose from the tanks. Brass keys and a narrow stack of papers waited on the work table. "The ugliest part first," Elena said. "I chose the room before I approached Calvin. Then I used his access for distribution, and I turned that into an affair." I looked at the lease instead of her. It named Elena as the tenant. Talia checked the signature page, execution date, commencement date, and first payment receipt. She aligned the receipt beneath the lease and removed her glasses. "This predates Calvin's first proposal," she said. "By 11 weeks, Elena replied. "You had already decided to leave the orchard business," I said. "Yes." "And you went to him afterward?" "For placement and distribution. He did not find this room for me. He did not finance the deposit." She showed us the relevant payment record. The rent had come from disclosed savings and her independent business account. She kept the unrelated pages covered, and neither Talia nor I asked for access to them. "I signed the lease before I asked Calvin for distribution," Elena said. The brass keys fit the premises she already occupied. Calvin held no lease right, no label equity, and no ownership in the tanks. Elena retained every paper after voluntarily letting us inspect the dates. "Why hide it?" I asked. "Because I wanted a future you could not veto with fruit or family. That made honesty frightening. It did not make deception necessary." "You chose the lie before you chose him." "I chose the room. Then I chose to use him. Then I chose him in bed. Those were my decisions. I had preferred a rival because a rival could be beaten. Calvin could be richer, smoother, or better connected, and I could still imagine winning Elena back from him. The dated lease left me with Elena's agency and my own conduct. Neither could be removed by defeating another man. "Did you take crew records or orchard documents?" Talia asked. "No." I already knew Darius's answer. Now I had the chronology that made my accusation worse rather than safer. "The growers heard me call it theft," I said. Elena folded her account page. "They did. I'll correct it before the same people." "That does not settle what you did." "I know." It was the first useful answer I had given her all week. I scheduled the correction before June could persuade me to keep family damage private. June stopped me outside the packing shed meeting with the undrawn loan folder under her arm. "Handle this inside the family," she said. "Do not shame the name to comfort Elena." The accusation was public. "Then say emotions ran high. Do not surrender your ground." Workers and growers were already taking the scuffed folding chairs. Felix stood near the back. Elena and Darius kept distance between themselves and me. June touched the loan folder. "Walk in there and abandon your claim, and this comes home with me." I went to the lectern. Pear dust lifted when the room settled. My hands wanted a load ticket, an invoice, anything I could flatten and count. I gripped the wood instead. "I accused Elena Ruiz of stealing workers and orchard knowledge," I said. I had no evidence for that accusation. No one moved. She did not take Rourke fruit, equipment, confidential records, or labor under contract. The workers chose where to work. My punitive assignments caused the resignations and the failed load. Elena held my gaze. I gave her no affair details to absorb in public and no request to forgive me. "I withdraw the accusation. I was wrong to make it here, and anyone who heard it from me should treat this correction as the accurate account. Felix unfolded the canceled load ticket in his pocket and looked at Darius. Darius said, "I heard the correction, Rourke." He did not use my first name. The words restored no trust, but they made the public record harder to misuse. Elena stepped forward only far enough to be heard. "The correction is factual. It is not reconciliation." "I understand," I said. June left before the meeting ended. The loan folder stayed tucked against her side. Felix waited until the chairs began moving. "Reliable labor and a full window still come before future business." "I know. But this was required." He shook my hand once and released it. Talia followed June toward the farmhouse to compare the loan papers with the bank ledger. The accusation no longer stood unchallenged among the people I had harmed. Neither did the money I had expected to carry harvest. June flattened the cancellation notice beneath her palm on the farmhouse kitchen table. "You can still correct the correction," she said. Talia placed the promissory note, draw approvals, and bank ledger beside it. "The funded advances remain orchard debt. The later balance was never approved or transferred." "How much do I still have access to?" I asked. "Nothing from the undrawn portion," Talia said. "June can cancel it under these papers." June looked at me. "Say you spoke too broadly because your wife humiliated you. Say the knowledge belonged to this ground even if a lawyer would use another word. The workers chose to leave after my assignments. She set the conditions around you. That is not theft. You care more about Elena hearing you kneel than keeping what your father paid for." The oldest trees were visible through the kitchen window. June polished family history whenever fear reached her. My father had held that acreage through bad markets, injury, and 2 failed seasons. She spoke of those years as if the dead had signed my loan. "The correction stays," I said. June pushed the cancellation notice toward Talia. The undisbursed money had never entered my control. Canceling it did not accelerate the earlier debt, but it removed the operating capital I had counted on for payroll, processor costs, and frost preparation. Talia matched the notice against the bank ledger. "It is effective. Prior draws only." June gathered the unused draw forms. "Then hold the orchard without me. You already hold security in what you funded. And you still mistake paper for duty." "No," I said. "I mistook silence for it." Her face changed, as if I had struck the table. She carried the undrawn balance away with her. Talia squared the canceled draw beside unpaid invoices. "Existing cash covers earned payroll first. After that, you choose which preparation gets delayed." I counted the invoices aloud. Fuel maintenance, processor deposit, frost fan service, payroll. The numbers did not produce another source of money. "Give me the actual shortfall by morning," I said. She nodded. "I will. It will still be the shortfall." I left the correction untouched and accepted the loss of June's remaining capital. The orchard was more truthful than it had been that morning and less able to survive the season. The lost rescue left idle equipment on my side of the boundary, while workers across the road lacked the machines to prepare their crop. I was not in Elena's tasting room when Calvin returned Thursday. I know what happened because Elena gave me the account later. Ivy confirmed what she witnessed, and Elena showed me the unsigned proposal and termination message. Calvin arrived with placement projections and an equity offer. Unlabeled samples sweated beside the percentage page while he praised Elena's palate. "You have a launch people will remember," he told her. "It only needs reach." "What percentage?" Elena asked. He named it. She gave the ugliest fact first when she was serious, even about business. "You want part of my label because the affair ended and distribution is the remaining door. That is harsher than the opportunity deserves." "It is accurate." Calvin softened his voice. "You approached me because you knew I could recognize what this wanted to become. There is no shame in using the right partner. I already used you. You chose me." "I did. I am not calling it an accident, and I am not extending it through equity." He told her reduced scale would waste her talent. He offered immediate placements, launch support, and money that did not depend on Micah Rourke fruit. Even in Elena's account, he avoided saying what he would partly possess. "I can give you room," he said. "You want my name inside your percentage. That is not how serious growth works. It is how this offer works." Elena slid the unsigned pages back and closed his sample bottle. "No money, equity, license, inventory, or distribution right had transferred. "I am declining the financing," she said. "All launch discussions end today. Do not contact Ivy or my venues on my behalf." Calvin looked toward Ivy. "You understand what this does to your reach?" Ivy removed his unused tasting glass from the table. Elena answered. Calvin kept his money and commercial network. Elena kept a wholly owned label that could no longer afford the planned launch. That evening, she sent the termination in writing. She did not mention me as her reason. Venue holds would begin expiring that night. Elena carried the reduced placement list to Ivy and started cutting the future she had once believed only Calvin could open. The next morning, Elena and Ivy worked from the money already under Elena's control. Their account came to me later with the revised batch sheets, cancellation acknowledgments, permit file, and paid shift schedule. Marker squeaked across the production board as Elena crossed out venues and halved batch numbers. Empty tanks stood behind her like capacity she could no longer pretend to fill. "If we keep the original volume," Elena told Ivy, "I cannot guarantee your wages." Ivy held the payroll sheet with both hands. "If you cut volume, do I still have an apprenticeship? Fewer shifts, paid shifts, real production and seller work. How many?" Elena showed her the revised schedule. Ivy studied it. "Can the existing permits cover these batches?" "Yes. We are reducing production, not changing the licensed operation. And the fruit. Neighbor contracts and cooperative supply cover the reduced plan if harvest holds." Elena canceled tentative placements under their reservation terms before noon. The venues regained their openings. No one received brand rights or equity in exchange. Her disclosed savings and current label revenue remained enough for fewer licensed batches, wages, rent, and required supplies. She drank cold coffee from the chipped blue mug I had bought after her first batch foamed over years before. Failure had embarrassed her then. I had responded by replacing what broke and telling myself that rescue was love. This time I was nowhere in the room. "I can release you," Elena told Ivy. "You can look for a larger program." Ivy glanced from the crossed-out venues to the paid shift schedule. "What is my next shift?" Elena gave her the time. "Then I'll be here." The answer did not restore the canceled placements. Elena's name would launch in fewer rooms, with less volume and no distributor promising effortless reach. Ivy would learn more slowly and earn fewer hours. They sent every cancellation, revised the purchase orders, and committed only the funds Elena possessed. The large launch was gone for the season. What remained was smaller enough to be honest, and still large enough to depend on the cooperative fruit being prepared across the boundary road. Monday dawn found 3 cooperative workers dragging pruned limbs by hand, while my brush rake and utility tractor sat cold inside the boundary road shed. Fresh grafting tape flashed among their young trees. Darius checked a worker's frayed glove, replaced it from a supply box, and only then came to the road. June stood beside my equipment pad. "Those machines secure Rourke ground. They are idle. Then preserve them. The cooperative is losing preparation time." "That is not your crop." Darius heard her. "She is right about ownership." I took the tractor keys from the hook but kept them in my fist. "I can make the equipment available." "We do not need a favor," he said. "I'm offering capacity." "You're trying to say generosity because restitution tastes worse." June stepped between the shed and the road. "You owe no machine to people who walked off your harvest." I gave them the reason. "You already humiliated yourself publicly." Darius looked at me. "If this is repayment for trust, I keep the keys. Trust is not settled." "What terms would make the machines usable?" His expression shifted, not toward warmth, but negotiation. "Written block and purpose, approved operators, insurance confirmed before release. We buy fuel. Maintenance and damage terms are clear. No calling workers back to your rouse because you lent us steel." "And a return date?" "Yes. Independent operator control while the agreement is active." Darius nodded once. "Put that in writing." June's mouth tightened. "Every asset you move across that road teaches them the name means nothing." I looked at the idle hour log hanging inside the shed. The machines had capacity I was protecting, only because exclusive control still felt like strength. "The name is on the title," I said. "It does not need to be on their labor." June left the pad without another verdict. Her silence carried what remained of her approval with it. I set the keys back on the hook. Darius would receive no machine until insurance confirmed coverage and both sides signed. He sent the cooperative's proposed operators and used terms that morning. For one more day, the steel remained mine and useless. If the confirmation did not arrive before harvest preparation slipped again, my offer would become another speech made after the cost. The insurance confirmation arrived Tuesday before noon. It named the authorized operators, listed the equipment by serial number, and covered its specified use on the cooperative block. At the equipment pad, Darius reviewed the final agreement line by line. The cooperative would buy fuel. My scheduled maintenance obligations remained mine. Temporary custody covered the named machines, block, purpose, operators, and return date. I retained title and no authority over the cooperative crew. Ivy stood beside the tractor with tape and a marker. She checked each operator credential against the list, then taped the approved names beside the ignition. Darius tapped the signature line. This does not repay what happened. I know. It does not put us back under you. I know that too. You do not get to call the equipment home because your harvest falls behind. Not while the agreement is active. He watched me, waiting for the amendment that would return control through a side door. I signed without changing a word. The keys had hung in my shed for years, sorted by machine and marked with steel tags. I unhooked every assigned set. Their teeth bit into my grease-blackened palm as I carried them to Darius. The boundary road ran between us. The only straight line Elena and I used to joke existed on the farm. I had treated it as proof that what lay on my side answered to me. I opened my hand. Darius took the keys. Custody until the return date, nothing more. Nothing more. He signed and gave me my copy. The agreement, coverage confirmation, serial list, and operator records stayed together on my clipboard. Ownership remained mine. Daily control did not. Ivy climbed onto the utility tractor only after Darius checked her name on the approved list. The engine caught on the second turn. Workers attached the brush rake and moved toward their unfinished rows. Darius remained beside me while the machine crossed the road. Useful is not forgiven, he said. I heard you. This time, I did not turn restored capacity into a request for my first name. I stood at the line and let their operators choose the first pass. The cooperative gained the machinery needed to stage its crop before the night cooling. My own reserve narrowed, and the labor damage remained where no signed page could erase it. Felix had asked for reliable labor before any future buyer talk. The running machines gave him something concrete to inspect, though none of them were working under my authority. Felix arrived at the cooperative loading pad before the pallet boards had dried from the night rain. He tested a loose crate slat with his thumb, pulled it free, and looked at Darius instead of me. Who assigns the operators? I do, Darius said. Can Rourke recall the equipment when his own work falls behind? Not under the signed terms. Darius told him the written equipment terms were fair and the operators remained independent. He did not say I was fair. I kept my hands off the papers while he answered. Felix inspected the serial list, operator records, maintenance log, and insurance confirmation. Wet pallet wood darkened his cuffs. The forklift mast stood cold behind him. My correction ought to count for something, I said. It counted as a correction. Felix set the records down. It did not fill the load you missed. I can plan next season around your old volume. No, you can plan around this. Next season's processor wants volume. Then promise him only what you can deliver. That makes the deposit harder to recover. Your deposit is not my purchase order. My crew is not his guarantee, Felix. That is the arrangement I came to inspect. Smaller volume, written terms, no borrowed promises. Can you work inside that? Yes. Felix signed a limited next season purchase window and slid it across the wet pallet. The sheet fixed maximum volume, grade, price method, delivery dates, and his right to reject a short load. No fruit or money changed hands until I accepted a purchase order and delivered. This season stays canceled? I asked. I replaced that fruit 15 days ago. And next season? You prove the crew arrangement holds. Darius verifies the working facts. Then I buy inside that window. Darius said, I will verify facts. I will not guarantee him. That is what I asked for, Felix said. The old Micah would have argued that one failed load should not erase years of delivery. I could feel the argument stacked behind my teeth. Each year, another crate I wanted credited. I signed without asking for more. Felix gave me the original and kept his copy. Reliable at the smaller number beats promises at the larger one. The buyer path had survived, but the old volume and this season's revenue had not. Darius returned to the forklift without offering his hand. His verification remained his to give or withhold. Talia was waiting in the orchard office with the crop schedule. Felix's narrow window left pairs uncommitted, and we had until the cooperative allocation closed to decide whether those pairs became cash, cider, or rot. Talia had 3 price comparisons spread across my desk when Elena arrived. Steam from the chipped blue mug blurred the lowest figure. "At this discount," Talia said, "you lose 11% against the processor, quote. The processor has not committed. The cash loss is still an actual number." Elena warmed both hands around the mug. I remembered buying it after her first batch foamed over when embarrassment had made her cry harder than the ruined cider deserved. Back then, tenderness had come easily after failure. Now even coffee required terms. The offer identified the uncommitted South Block pairs, the signed offer fixed grade, quantity, price, and a 5-day acceptance period. Title would remain mine until accepted delivery. There were no rights to her label, batches, accounts, or distribution. Elena read every page. "Where is the approval language?" "Gone." "What happens if I use the fruit in a blend you hate?" "You sell your cider." "And if I refuse?" "I allocate elsewhere before harvest." She held my gaze over the blue rim. "What do you want, Micah?" "The listed price by the listed date." "That is what the paper wants." I found one surviving clause allowing consultation on label language. Talia had marked it as non-binding, but I knew what a side door looked like because I had built enough of them. I crossed out the last approval clause, signed the offer, and set it between us. Talia checked the deletion. "The margin gets worse." "I know." Elena touched the signature but did not pick up the pen. "If I take the discount, do I hear about it the next time I say no to you?" "No." "After everything, clean terms cannot prove a clean motive." "They cannot." The room held ferment warmth from the sample bottles she had brought, and I could smell pear skin on her sleeve. Wanting her near me did not create an additional line item. She took the signed original and crop schedule. "I need to compare it with the cooperative terms. I will not call before the deadline." Her eyes dropped once to my hands, then returned to the paper. "Good." She left with the right to accept and no obligation to soothe me for offering it. By the next afternoon, the cooperative would lock its member allocation. Her answer had to come before then. Pear dust lay over the packing shed table and clung to the carbon paper beneath Darius's contract. Cooperative members stood far enough back to let him negotiate without pretending they were absent. Elena gave me the ugliest fact first. "Your fruit is cheaper. I am still saying no." I folded my copy of the offer once. "Is there a problem with the terms?" "No. That is why this is hard." Darius set his contract beside mine. His price covered member labor, land share, fuel, and a frost reserve. Elena would pay a deposit from her launch account and the balance on accepted delivery. "The cooperative crop is less certain," I said. "So is every crop," Darius answered. Elena looked at me. "Your offer is clean. Taking it would still put my launch back on fruit you control. You would have a contract. And workers here would lose the buyer they built the block for." She chose the workers' crop even though mine would cost her less. The refusal hit lower because it was not punishment. She trusted that I had removed the hook and declined the line anyway. The contract listed grade, quantity, deposit, delivery, frost risk, and payment dates. Darius passed the member schedule around before signing. Nobody was promised wages the crop could not support, and nobody gave Elena management authority in exchange for her purchase. Elena declined my offer and signed Darius's higher-priced cooperative contract. She handed him the deposit receipt, and he gave her the delivery copy. Ivy erased South Block from her batch clipboard and wrote cooperative beside the reduced launch quantities. "That changes our asset target," she said, looking to Elena. "Can I run samples before the first full pick?" "You will be paid for the sample shift," Elena said. "Put it on the schedule." Her launch now had fruit without Calvin's money or my permission. My supply route back into her work closed with no villain in the room. Elena slid my unsigned acceptance page toward me. Our fingers stopped short of touching. The restraint carried more heat than contact would have. "I did not refuse because I think you lied in that offer," she said. "I know. I refuse because I need to know my work survives when you are hurt." I tucked the page into my folder without lowering the price again. The cooperative had her business, and she had accepted its weather risk. Darius turned the wall calendar toward us. The frost forecast had moved forward. Their signed crop now had to survive the cold hollow before it could become cider or wages. At dusk, Talia set the fuel receipts beside the tank gauge and wiped diesel from her calculator. June watched from the doorway of the boundary shed. The Rourke block gets first use. Darius had brought the cooperative machine logs and an acreage map. Our hollow runs 3 degrees colder after midnight. Elena stood beside him but did not speak for him. I checked Talia's figures twice, because arithmetic had always been the place I went when I wanted feeling to wait. The fuel receipts, tank gauges, burn rates, and acreage calculations all agreed. The machines Darius held could cover the cooperative's inner rows for part of the night. My remaining towable rig could hold the heritage block if it stayed there. Rotating the full circuit required shutdown, hitching, travel, placement, and restart. We did not have fuel or time to maintain both. "Buy another delivery," June said. "No supplier can reach us before the freeze," Talia replied. "There is no emergency credit left. That is not judgment, it is the account." "Then drain the reserve tank. It is already in the total." "What if we cycle the fans in 20-minute shifts?" I asked. Darius said, "The hollow loses heat during shutdown and restarting burns fuel we do not have." "You are all choosing the answer you want." "No, I am naming the answer the gauges gave us. 1 block only." Darius led us down into the cooperative hollow. Cold already collected there, a thin wetness against my boots. He showed me the lower sensors and the exposed outer rows. 1 full frost circuit could protect 1 block, not 2. June pointed uphill. "Those trees were paid for before any of them arrived." "These trees pay 23 people if they live," Darius said, "and his trees pay his debt." Talia proved the shortage before any of us could turn it into an opinion. Ownership records, insured use terms, and fuel logs stayed open on the workbench for everyone to inspect. Custody stayed where the signed agreements had put it. Only our assumptions changed. Darius kept the lent machines. I kept my remaining rig. Elena held a contract for fruit that might freeze before delivery. I ordered both blocks staged separately. It was not a solution. It only prevented us from wasting the hours before the first alarm. June treated my refusal to recall the machines as a decision against our ground. Darius treated my remaining rig uphill as a decision for it. Both were right enough to hurt. For the first time, the question was plain. Which block would I protect? The first alarm was forecast before midnight. We split at the boundary road to stage inadequate equipment on each side before the temperature made the decision for us. The first frost alarm sounded while both blocks stood underprotected. Its chirp cut through diesel cough, leaf hiss, and the clank of Ivy setting an empty fuel can beside the cooperative pad. She found Darius's dropped glove in the grass and handed it back before taking her station. June held out her hand. "Get the keys." Darius stood beside the lent tractor. I could still name every machine by the wear on its ignition, but the agreement gave him custody through the return date. "We need everything on Rourke ground," June said. Elena checked the cooperative sensor on her phone. "The hollow will freeze first. That fruit is not his." "No," Elena said. "It is not." I closed my fist around the key to my own rig, not Darius's keys. The small distinction carried most of the man I had been, and not enough of the one I needed to become. I told Darius to keep every lent machine and closed my hand around my own key. June stared at me. "You would let family equipment defend somebody else's claim?" "The use terms are active. Paper does not outrank duty. It outranks taking back my word when I get scared. Fear is when duty matters. Fear is when terms matter. Otherwise, they are only promises made in easy weather. The agreement says custody through the return date, Rourke. Revoke it now, and your signature lasts only until you want something. He owns the steel, then he can honor the paper attached to it." "I will." Darius logged the retained keys, checked the operator list, and kept custody under the insured agreement. His qualified operators started the machines under the cooperative schedule. Ownership remained mine. Daily control did not return to me because frost made control attractive. I drove my remaining rig uphill and positioned it in the heritage block. The fans caught after 2 tries, pushing warmer air along the old rows. I had defied June and still staged my strongest protection around the inheritance she wanted saved. Elena followed to the boundary weather mast. "Their lower sensor is dropping faster." "I know." If the wind dies, partial coverage will not hold. I know that too. The alarm chirped again inside my coat. It was still an ordinary warning then. A measured temperature, a grower's bad preparation, a narrowing weather window. I wanted it to remain only that. June went uphill to watch the heritage rows. Darius stayed below with the workers. Elena and I carried the 2 exposed sensors to the mast for recalibration. The temperature kept falling while we worked. Without the upgraded forecast, I did not know the final safe minute for moving the heritage rig. Near midnight, grafting tape ticked against the metal weather stake while Elena held the reference thermometer beneath the sensor shield. "Your unit reads 4/10 high," she said. "Yours reads 2/10 low." So, neither of us knows the exact temperature? That sounds familiar? Her mouth tightened, then almost smiled. We calibrated the cooperative alarm first and mine second. Both receivers answered from inside my coat, one sharp chirp followed by the other. Elena laughed once before she could stop herself. I had missed that sound enough to resent my own body for turning toward it. She smelled of cold air and fermenting pears. The mast light picked out the silver at her temple and the small scar on her wrist from our first bottling line. She watched my hands tighten the sensor clamp. "You still make every repair look personal," she said. "A loose clamp does not care who I am." "I used to?" The words stayed between us. I reached past her for the tape, careful not to touch. She caught the front of my coat instead. "Elena." "I know." She kissed me. There was nothing uncertain in the first pressure of her mouth. My hands found her waist through the work jacket because 12 years had taught them the route. Her body came against mine, familiar enough to make separation feel like a mistake we could correct by standing closer. Then she turned her face away. "Stop!" I opened my hands, released her, and reached for the alarm handset. She took one step back. Her breathing showed white between us. "I wanted that," she said. "So did I. It does not mean I am coming home." "I know. It does not forgive the fruit, the accusation, or what I did with Calvin." "I know that too." She searched my face as if waiting for the price to appear. I kept my hands on the handset and read the calibrated settings aloud. Cooperative low alarm, 31.8. Heritage low alarm, 32. "You are not going to ask what the kiss means?" she said. "You stopped. That is what I need to know right now." The cold made her eyes shine, but she did not offer another explanation. We fastened the sensor covers, checked the timestamps, and kept our separate keys. Desire had returned without granting either of us access. The ache of releasing her stayed physical and exact, but it did not become her debt. Headlights appeared on the boundary road. Talia's truck came fast enough to scatter gravel. She had the upgraded forecast, and both calibrated alarms began chirping before she reached us. Talia stopped beside the equipment shed and carried her tablet under her coat to keep the screen warm. "The forecast updated 9 minutes ago," she said. "The cold front accelerated." Talia brought the time-stamped forecast, and Darius laid his stopwatch beside it. The new curve showed the cooperative hollow reaching damaging cold first, with the heritage block following soon after. June studied the uncertainty band. "A forecast is not a verdict." "No," Talia said. "The calibrated thermometers are." Darius had already marked the tow route with reflective stakes. He walked me through the transfer without moving the rig. Shutdown, blade stop, chain connection, boundary crossing, placement, fuel line check, and restart. At each stage, he called the time while Talia worked the stopwatch. "Elena's contract does not entitle us to ruin him," Elena said. Darius looked at her. "Nobody asked him to move it." June seized that. "Then there is no argument." "There is a crop," Ivy said from the fuel table, "and paid work attached to it." Nobody answered her. Darius completed the route demonstration and stopped the watch. We added the rig's tested shutdown and restart times from its maintenance log. The total consumed nearly every minute before the heritage block crossed its own damage threshold. The forecast, calibrated alarms, thermometer, and stopwatch gave us the same shrinking window. I rubbed warmth into the thermometer bulb and counted the figures again. There was no time to protect one block, discover we had guessed wrong, and rescue the other. We had time for one transfer before damaging cold arrived. June said, "Uncertainty means you hold position." "It means waiting chooses the block where the rig already sits," Talia replied. Elena stepped close enough that only I heard her next words. "Do not make my future the reason you destroy yours." Her refusal did not release me. It removed the last excuse of claiming I had acted because she asked. I looked from the stopwatch to the road. Delay had stopped being neutral. Every minute I kept the rig uphill, spent part of the only decision left. Darius collected his stakes and returned to the cooperative rows. Talia kept the forecast visible. June followed me toward the heritage rig, repeating my father's rule that ground held through one bad night could carry a name another century. The next alarm would leave no reversible move. I followed the rig lights toward the boundary. The boundary road shone pale under the mast light. On one side, my heritage fans pushed warm air through trees my grandfather had planted. On the other, Darius's smaller machines coughed heat into a hollow too wide for them. He came up from the cooperative block with ice along his jacket sleeves. "We are abandoning the outer rows," he said. "We can hold the inner 6 if the temperature steadies." "It will not," Talia said. Ivy and 2 workers dragged fuel lines inward. She stumbled once, caught herself, and went back for the line without looking to see who had noticed. Elena moved toward them. Darius stopped her. "Stay clear of the towpath." "She has fruit contracted here," June said. "Let her watch what that choice bought." Elena turned. "My contract did not buy Micah's land. It put you on the other side of this road. I put myself there." The final alarm sounded as Darius abandoned the cooperative's outer rows. Every receiver answered at once. Darius took one pear from a low branch, found ice beginning beneath its skin, and slipped it into his pocket before leaving the row. Visible frost had reached the inner branches. June stood beside my truck. "Hold the rig where it is." Elena came back to me, breath breaking white between her words. "Save your trees. If I hold position, they lose the cooperative crop. They know that. Ivy loses the batches attached to her shifts. She will find another start. 23 people lose the crop they built." Her face hardened. "Do not turn them into a way to reach me." I kept one hand on the hitch pin. "I am not asking you to come back. You will have sold your land for my supply. No, I will have decided which crop gets heat. That sentence will not feel clean when your trees die." June said, "Listen to your wife for once." The old command carried my father's voice inside it. Keep the ground, hold the name, make usefulness so complete that departure becomes dishonesty. My crop could still support the debt if it lived. My house equity would stay out of the lender's reach. June might call me her son without disappointment in the word. Below us, Darius shut down one weak machine to preserve fuel for the inner rows. The silence spread through the outer trees. "Micah," Elena said, "my future cannot be purchased with your land." I looked at her. Desire had made me ask for permission in disguises before. Gratitude, partnership, home, one more chance. I refused to ask which future she wanted. If I moved, the choice had to remain mine, and the consequences had to remain with me. Talia read the thermometer. 31.6 in the hollow, 32.1 uphill. Darius called from below. "We are at the inner line." June gripped my arm. "Your name is in those routes." The alarm chirped until it became one continuous demand. I pulled my arm free without answering her. Cold had entered the cooperative wood. Observation was no longer a defensible act. I turned from the alarm toward the running rig. The fan blades were still turning when I reached the controls. Elena followed. "Micah, leave it running." June called my name from the road. Darius shouted from below, 3 minutes to the inner threshold." I cut the throttle. The engine died, and the fan blades slowed into black, useless shapes. Cold settled over the heritage rows without the machinery's push. June said, "Start it again." I waited for the blades to stop, pulled the stabilizers, and backed the truck into place. The chain bit through my gloves as I set it. Elena caught my sleeve. "You do not get to give me this." "I am not giving it to you." "Then why?" "Because their crop keeps more than me alive." She released my sleeve as if the answer hurt worse than a plea. I killed my fans, locked the hitch, and towed the rig across the boundary road. June stood on the center line. I drove around her shoulder without making her move for me. I passed Elena without asking her to understand, forgive me, or come home. At the cooperative entrance, Darius raised one hand. "You permit entry?" I called. "I permit it. Bring it to the inner line." Darius said I could enter, then logged the rig's arrival and took emergency operating custody. Title remained mine, but placement and crew direction belonged to him for the freeze response. Ivy steadied the fuel hose with shaking gloves while I opened the line. Diesel caught. The engine stumbled, then fired hard enough to send heat along the cooperative branches. Darius kept command of his crew while my rig worked under his emergency directions. He did not thank me. He assigned operators, checked the fuel, and moved workers into the protected rows. The cooperative block received the only full frost circuit, and mine went dark. Across the road, silver tightened around the old blossoms. The thermometer passed their damage point before I could have shut down, rehitched, and returned. Behind me, the unprotected heritage blossoms froze hard enough to kill the season's crop. Elena stood outside the cooperative row, crying without coming closer. I did not cross to collect comfort from what I had chosen. By dawn, steam lifted from Darius's inner block. Mine remained white and silent. The surviving cooperative fruit kept Ivy's paid apprenticeship attached to Elena's smaller launch. The workers retained their crop and their authority. My restitution no longer depended on their obedience, and my marriage no longer rested on the harvest I could withhold. The cold locked that choice into the wood before daylight gave any of us language for it. 3 weeks later, I counted dead buds in each heritage row before signing anything. The damage report matched the cold I had watched settle. No commercial crop, no revenue sufficient to carry the secured debt, and no insurance recovery large enough to close the gap. At the farmhouse table, Talia laid out the damage map, lender payoff, proposed settlement sheet, and lease offer. Talia laid the damage map over the payoff statement. Selling the oldest acres was the only solvent path. June put both hands on the table. Mortgage the house. That deepens the exposure, Talia said. It does not restore the crop. The land stays in the name, and the house joins the collateral. June looked at me. One bad season is not permission to surrender. It is not one season. It is the actual debt. Your father refinanced and never sold a row, Micah. The offer expires before another lender could review the house. He had unpledged parcels and a crop in storage. I have neither. Numbers are not inheritance. They are the part a lender can collect. What do you call the ground your children will never walk? Ground I could keep by pledging the house to dead trees. Elena sat opposite me with the disclosed marital accounting. Are you telling me the cost so I know it or so I owe it? So you know what changes. You moved the rig. I did. I told you not to. I remember. She waited for me to attach the sacrifice to us. I did not. Talia tapped the lease deadline. The smaller orchard had sound trees, less acreage, and no family title. Its deposit had to be included in closing before the offer expired. I refused June's house mortgage and sold the family ground. At closing, the buyer accepted the recorded deed. The lender released the parcel lien, and sale proceeds paid the debt, closing costs, and lease deposit. Talia checked the settlement figures, while Elena received the final disclosed schedule. I signed the deed that sold the oldest acreage and the lease for smaller ground. When the deed recorded, the oldest Rourke ground belonged to the buyer. There would be no ancestral acreage to preserve after closing. June stood beside the oldest tree before leaving. She cut one short piece of pear wood and slipped it into her coat. You chose strangers, she said. I chose the living crop. You chose against your name. I chose what the name could not decide for me. She left without forgiving that answer. The lease gave me next season's work, not ownership. I had rows to prune and no inheritance to use as proof that anyone belonged beside me. The deposit cleared before the lease deadline, and the first pruning date was mine to meet on smaller ground. By early winter, Elena and I had spent months keeping boundaries that no frost alarm could enforce for us. We attended counseling because we each chose to go. We arrived separately, paid from separate accounts, and left without using a difficult hour as permission to follow the other home. Her city kitchen carried ferment warmth. 2 renewal envelopes lay beside the chipped blue mug. Our advisors finished the review, she said. The schedules match. The written agreement allocated future earnings, business liabilities, shared obligations, and residence costs without ending the marriage. Full disclosure did not include account credentials. Privacy did not excuse hidden debt. Elena poured my coffee. I want us exclusive. I read her face before I trusted myself to answer. You are not offering me a key. No. Or a merged account. No. Or the farmhouse. I am not moving back there, and I do not want you moving here. Desire moved through the room anyway. I remembered her mouth at the weather mast, and the moment she stopped. She came around the table now and rested her hand against my chest. I want weekends, she said. I want honesty before appetite. I want to choose you without needing your ground. I want the same. And if separate homes stop working? We say it before we build a second life around the silence. She kissed me once, warm and unhurried. I did not reach for the keys lying near her purse. We signed after full financial disclosure and separate review without exchanging account passwords or house keys. The agreement left our businesses independent, listed the obligations we still shared, and documented 2 renewed residences. We chose exclusivity and renewed 2 homes instead of rebuilding one. The cost was daily proximity. There would be no shared kitchen every morning, no assumption that work entitled either of us to the other's bed, and no single address offered as proof the marriage had survived. Desire returned, but neither of us used it as proof of access. Elena handed me coffee in the chipped blue mug. Market Sunday? I will bring my own awning. I was counting on it. Our separate vans were due at the growers' market before the rain. Rain started before the market opened. I unloaded pears from the smaller leased orchard while Elena arranged cider from the cooperative crop beneath her own label. Our crates kept separate names while our marriage held across 2 addresses. Water ran off my canvas and struck the aisle between us. Elena checked the gap, found 2 old awning clips in her toolbox, and stepped onto a crate before I could offer a hand. "Hold your corner," she said. I took the wet canvas edge. The habit returned without claiming anything beyond the task. She fixed one clip, then the other, drawing the awnings close enough to shelter the space between our tables. Elena clipped our separate awnings together and slid her chair beneath the dry seam. She nudged the second chair toward me with her boot. I checked the crate line before moving it. Her cider stayed on her side. My pears stayed on mine. "You can sit," she said. "That is not a merger. I wanted the minutes recorded." "You always do." I sat beside her. Rain drummed above us, and customers moved through the dry space without needing to know which pieces of shelter belonged to whom. Elena poured coffee into the chipped blue mug and handed it over after taking the first sip. "Wrong fruit," she said. I tasted it. "Neighbor's pear in the blend." Her shoulder touched mine. "You finally learned." "No, I learned I could be wrong and keep drinking." She smiled and left her chair beneath the joined canvas. Neither of us moved a label, a crate, or a key. The market continued under 2 names. When the wind pushed rain through the aisle, we each held one wet corner and kept the seam clipped between us. Subscribe to Infidelity Director for more stories about the hard choices after betrayal. Would you have moved the frost rig across the boundary road, knowing the oldest acres would be lost? Thanks for listening. Love protects another person's freedom only when care is not kept as a debt.